What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Absolute Strength Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hunt, and today's guest is Marcus Filly, former CrossFit Games athlete. Dude has an amazing physique. He's all about functional bodybuilding is what we talk a lot about in this podcast. So essentially how to look great, but also move great as well. And this is something that gets brought up a lot. The idea of, and I say this about powerlifting too, but everybody who goes into the gym, regardless of what your ultimate goal is, you still want to look good. And shit, that might be your ultimate goal. That might be goal number one. That might be the A1 reason why you are in the gym is to look great. Actually, for the majority of people, that's probably true. However, then you get into whether it's powerlifting, CrossFit, Olympic lifting, sports, whatever. You have either a secondary goal or this performance side, this performance piece ends up becoming the primary goal. And even if it becomes the primary goal, you still want to look good. Everyone wants to look good. So essentially what Marcus has been doing lately has been what he calls functional bodybuilding. So it's kind of like a CrossFit model. You're doing a lot of functional movements, but it's programmed in a way to build muscle and look good. So we talked a lot about that. We talked a lot about nutrition. We talked a lot about his training for the CrossFit Games, both as a team member and as an individual. I always, I don't get a lot of opportunity to talk to former CrossFit Games athletes. We had Tim Paulson on like last year, and that was actually before he even made the CrossFit Games. He was just a regional competitor last year, and then last year he ended up qualifying for the Games and did pretty well. I think he took like 20th or something, Tim Paulson. And that was a really cool opportunity because we got to sit down with a guy training for the CrossFit Games, which that training is, for most of you listening, it's so out in left field from what you're used to. It's cool. As a student of strength conditioning, as a student of just the strength world, just the fitness world, as I am, I love talking to different people and different ideas. And that's what this podcast is all about, is just a way to sit down and have these conversations and to learn and to provide some value. So without further ado, I'm going to get to the podcast here. Marcus Filly. Marcus, what's going on, man?
Kyle, what's going on, man? Nice to meet you, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure, dude. This is gonna be a good time. What'd you have going on today? Did you train already? I'm sure you did, right?
Yeah, I got my training in early in anticipation of talking with you, and then I'll save the afternoon for doing more business, admin stuff, and then work programming for some clients. But yeah, trained already twice this morning.
Twice? What did the program look like today?
Let's see. Started the morning at, I think I started around like 7:30. I did a aerobic session, which involved biker, skier, concept 2 rower, assault bike intervals for about an hour, and then took a break. Had some food, and what did I do in that break? I had a consultation with a client who's out in South Carolina right now.
Oh, really? And where is he in South Carolina?
He lives up in like the DC area, Baltimore area, and he he travels for work. So he had flown into Charlotte and then was driving to somewhere in South Carolina. I don't know. So he's on the road. And then I jumped into another session that had a lot of overhead work. So jerks, split jerks, push press, and then some more like mixed modal conditioning, kettlebell swings, push-ups, biking, that kind of business.
I like it. Do you normally train twice a day? Is that about what you do?
Yeah, it's a pretty consistent routine for me. It's ideally in a perfect scenario, it's like a morning session and then an early afternoon session. And I break it up with, meals. I break it up with work. I break it up with other things. And that's 5 days a week. Yeah. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday.
Awesome. Is the morning session always some type of conditioning work, or do you switch that up as well?
Yeah, no, it's always conditioning. or like just, I don't know, I guess I call it more like a blood flow or aerobic training, really, so it could vary in intensity. It's not necessarily like a consistently hard, effort trying to build aerobic, power. It's, 1 or 2 days a week. It might be go for a long walk, something like that. But it's typically just it's felt good for me over the years, in that routine where I can just wake up, not have too much CNS demand in my training. Lifting early in the morning doesn't feel the best for me, and it helps warm me up for more complex lifting and gymnastics and things that might come in the afternoon.
Yeah, honestly, in a perfect world, that's the setup that's always worked best for me. I've never, at least in my adult life that I've been in powerlifting specific style training, I've never been able to lift in the mornings. It never feels good. However, I always feel better in the afternoon if I can get up and moving in the morning. And like you said too, it's like I try not to really have any, I don't know, I try not to make it too aggressive in the morning, because then it kind of affects my afternoon. So it's kind of like, okay, if I can just get moving in the morning, make it kind of like low hanging fruit, just something that like maybe if I feel good, I'll do more, but it's like a minimum requirement. Come in, get something easy done. Maybe just a little bit of just movement, a little bit of mobility, get home, work, crush it in the afternoon.
Yeah, I think that's a good prescription for just like general health and well-being for people. It's like if they can get up in the morning and they can do some movement, just really low demand, and that can be as simple as going for a walk, so walking the dog, or if it's doing some yoga or doing something in their, living room that just gets them to move their body a little bit. Or, I got clients that have, they're fortunate to have some of the equipment at their house. They can get on the, I got one client every morning. He lives in Santa Cruz, California, and he goes and he makes his espresso drink on his like super fancy espresso maker. And then he goes and sits on the assault bike, opens the garage, and just kind of like watches the sunrise and pedals a little bit. So, I think it's a really, it's a great way to kind of move energy after you've been like laying down for however many hours of your sleep, and then just starts your day better.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you one thing for me too is, I'm an online coach. That's my business. So most of my day is spent right here in my office sitting in front of a computer. So most of my day is very sedentary, very just, I'm sitting down all day. So getting up, moving early. And then I also take like a couple breaks throughout the day where I'll just do you follow Mark Bell on Instagram? I don't know if you do or not. He
periodically I check him out for sure.
Yeah. So he does how he has been posting about the 10-minute walks. So I kind of do that. Just like get up, not necessarily 10 minutes every time. Sometimes it's a little bit shorter, sometimes a little bit longer, but just throughout the day, like getting up, getting moving, doing like a little 10-minute walk is kind of twofold. One, just gets me up and moving, and two, a little bit more activity as well.
Yeah. Well, we got somebody in our business complex here who subscribes to that. This guy has, it's like a clockwork. Like every 2 hours you see him just taking loops around the building. And he's just, I don't think the guy ever exercises beyond that. He just walks a ton. And maybe his goals aren't fitness related, but he seems to, manage his weight well. He seems to be like active and kind of vibrant. So it's like, that works great for him.
Yeah. So let's take it a step back. How'd this all start for you?
Well, let's give me some more direction there, because life started for me. No, what should we direct that towards?
All right, so first off, what got you into fitness? What led you down that path?
That's a good question for me to think about. But I think, from what my parents tell me when I was pretty little, I was just an active kid and wanted to play, the various sports. Like I was very physically inclined, and, they got me into youth rec sports pretty early. I think I was swinging a golf club at 5 or 6. I think I was, playing rec soccer at 7 or 8. I think baseball started around 9 years old. And so I don't know. I just love to play physical stuff. I didn't really ever, I think the only sport I really fell in love with was golf.
Okay.
Like I was truly I was passionate about golf, and, I spent my whole life like just studying the game, watching the game, playing. I would dream about golf, all that. But really most of the sports I played growing up were, it was just about getting out and moving and being active. And I think in high school, I started to be attracted to like fitness. I think I had a couple like cousins that were pretty into one in particular was very into fitness. And this was 20 years ago. He was like super, ahead of the times, reading about really, advanced training methods, not even advanced training methods. That's not the word I'm looking for. Just, thought leaders in the strength conditioning world. Like he was following Poliquin stuff back then. And, he's the one that introduced me to testosterone.net 20 years ago. And, anyway, I just got exposed to some stuff early on, and I've started to realize like, wow, like this is just such a great outlet for me to just go and be active. I was like the kid in the sophomore year in high school who would like go to the school weight room early, not with like my team, but because like the physics teacher would be in there at 5 a.m. and he would be working out and we could come and just mess around. So, that was me.
Yeah, that was me too in high school. I used to go to the gym. So across from my high school, across the road, was a YMCA. And my stepdad had to be at work at 6 o'clock in the morning. So on his way to work, around like 5:30, whatever, he would drop me off at the Y. I'd lift till, 7:30, whatever, literally to the last second. It would take me in time to walk over to school and make it to homeroom on time.
There you go.
That was me in high school.
So similar story. It just really it started from there. It started from recognizing that there was something that made, fitness, training myself, whether that was like weights or if it was the conditioning portion of soccer practice or if it was, when I would go and run the hills or whatever, like it made me feel a certain way that was, empowering. I certainly wasn't like the kid that got picked on by any means. I had a pretty fortunate upbringing and, but I had insecurities for sure. And, I was super shy and, I remember like freshman year of high school, like I just didn't want to be seen by anybody, but fitness and definitely like, expressing myself physically was something that just felt right. And that carried through high school, and I played some Division I soccer at UC Berkeley, and I loved it. But I loved the training of it more than I loved playing in any games. And I certainly loved, getting really fit and learning how to lift with D1 strength conditioning coaches. And it probably took me 2.5 years to realize, like, I don't actually like the sports anymore. I just want to play fitness, or I just want to like lift weights and be fit. And that's when really it just things transitioned for me. Like I fell out of love with sport and fell in love with fitness and training.
You wouldn't even believe how often I hear that. I mean, because really that's my story as well. I was big into wrestling since I was a little kid, all throughout high school. And then, really in high school, it hit me. I'm like, man, I like the training for wrestling way more than I'm enjoying the wrestling right now. And then it like hit me. I'm like, well, why don't I just train all the time? Why don't I just do that? Now, mind you, I looking back, like, okay, you have the rest of your life to train, kind of live in the moment. I probably should have just stuck with wrestling and went on to college and did that because that's what I did love at the time. But it's so common. Like I hear this, especially on the podcast when I'm talking to people, it's so common for someone to excel in sports, but at the same time, this fitness element just almost takes over the love that they once had for the sport. It's crazy. Yeah,
I guess I didn't realize it's good to hear that that's a common thing that you're hearing in the, the people that you're speaking to. And I think in part it's like, okay, well, at some point, your competitive edge, you've reached your potential in a way. Now you might like leave the game early, like you had more good years in you could have gone and played but most people, it's like, all right, sometime in high school, they realize like, I'm not going to play college. So why am I doing this? Like, I'm spending a lot of time. And you either got the person who still loves to move and they might start doing like gym stuff, or you got the person that was just like, I'm just going to give up, and they just don't do fitness anymore. They don't do anything. Right?
And those are the guys in the bar talking about, the old high school football stories.
yeah, exactly. So I knew I wasn't going to be in that group. And I would say that, I think my love of the sport of soccer kind of waned a little bit in college because I went from being, the guy that was starting and winning and being the best on the team to the backup goalkeeper that didn't see any minutes and was sitting on the bench. And that wears on a lot of people, and it wasn't like, okay, my time is coming. It was like I was training hard and it's just my time wasn't coming. I was playing behind All-Americans, behind, first team guys that were legit and 4 inches taller than me. And I didn't have a shot. So,
yeah.
I mean, whereas like when I would go into the weight room with the team, I was crushing everybody. They were like, damn, Phil, you're strong, and that felt good. It felt good to be, getting some positive feedback around something that I actually enjoyed a lot.
Yeah, that positive feedback, and kind of goes back on what you talked about in high school. I think that high school age, it's just we're so vulnerable to all these outside social pressures. And then when you really find a love for the weight room, and it's something that we can control our effort, we can control what we're doing and what direction we're going in a world where, you're in high school and you got all these other things, outside forces, we probably have lower self-esteem. And then this training element, it just not only increases your self-esteem, but then you have that control. And then that's another element that just like carries you throughout your rest of your life.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that word control certainly resonates for me because I took it as far as I could take it. It's like I controlled every aspect of my life, and where like the peak was kind of in the later years of college, where it was like every single gram of anything that went into my body from supplements, it was all written down, regimented, like before it was ever going to happen. I knew it was going to happen.
Yep.
Every rep set was documented, weight, progression, body composition, the circumference of my biceps. Like it was all there. Like I was just super, super dialed. And from that I learned a ton, and it was great to be like, I have control over something in a world that's a little bit chaotic around me. But, I think ultimately it taught me that like, hey, you know what, this isn't really the path that I want to be on the rest of my life. I want to evolve into some place where I'm intuitive about what my body needs. I have the knowledge base. I have the experience of controlling variables to know what's right for me. And then I can I can maintain and still continue to grow aspects of my fitness, my physique, my health, whatever, while not being as, strict, regimented and controlling about everything, which for everybody that's done it, it's like, you all know, it's like, it's a little isolating at times, and it's really hard to integrate into, a variety of different social circles with that kind of mentality. And it gets boring as hell, man. It's like, tired of weighing out broccoli and chicken breasts. Like I will literally not be able to do this for another 2 days.
Yeah. Well, the reason I actually use the word control is because really I was explaining my experience. I mean, I did exactly what you said. I mean, it got to a point where, I had everything documented right down to the nearest gram, whether it was from the nutrition side, from the training side, body composition side. And I like kind of used myself as an experiment early on in college, just how much I could control throughout, end of high school, early college. And then it kind of hit me. I'm like, oh man, like this is, something I say to my clients a lot is fitness is supposed to enhance your life, not control it and take away from it. Because you get to that certain point where it's just, oh my God, like I'm controlling too much. And like you said, you don't really have a social circle. You're limiting yourself so much in this pursuit. And yeah, you learn a ton. You learn a ton about yourself. You actually learn a ton about just what works for you, but it's not sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah. Side note, the guy that walks around the building just walked by. I just wanted to let you know that happened. I just saw him right out the window.
It's real. He's going.
It's
right
real.
Now.
He's walking. It's raining and he's walking. But yeah, I agree. But and to add to that, I had to go through that period, because when I was in it, I didn't feel like it was controlling my life, and I didn't feel like it was taking away anything. I was learning a ton about myself, and I was like, if you're not down with this, then we're not, we're not buddies. Like, and that's okay. Like, we just have different things we're into. And it's just, it was just another way of like learning, as we evolve. Like I hit a breaking point, it was probably a year after college was over, like the last year of college, where I was like undernourished, because I was like cutting too often and just trying to be too lean for too long, and still trying to train super hard. I was missing some education pieces on how to do it correctly, and had some injuries, and then was like, life balance, energetically, hormonally, I was just off, but I was still trying to push and still trying to maintain and still trying to like do all the things I was doing. And it was kind of at that point where I know most people kind of hit these realizations. It's like what was feeling great and what was adding so much to your life, the same routine is like killing you, and it's making you feel like shit, and you're just tired. And it's like at that moment, or those several months of, kind of the low point, it was like something has to be different for me. Like I can't do this way anymore. And had I had a coach at that time who could like counsel me through it, I think that transition would have been much more smooth for me. But I was kind of on my own to learn and to investigate for myself what the other side could look like. And I spent probably the next 3 to 4 years developing what was going to become kind of the next chapter of my, fitness evolution, which is where I'm at today. And those were some pretty hard years where it was like, all right, I had this peak in college where I felt amazing and I was in great shape and I loved what I was doing. I learned all this about myself, and that led to kind of a down spiral for a couple years where I was kind of yo-yoing between like feeling fit and feeling, balanced and connected to myself. And then months where I would just be like, God, I'm not well. I'm not healthy. I'm not fit. I'm not strong. I don't look the way I want to look. And, but I never gave up hope and never gave up the pursuit of finding that. And that's been my journey for pretty much my whole life, is the pursuit of finding what feels like, my sustainable, balance between being active, eating well, and living just a fulfilling life to the best of my ability.
At what point in this timeline did you find and start doing CrossFit?
It was kind of towards I would say if I'm going to call that like kind of a 4-year span of sort of discovering myself, like what was going to be my journey. I found CrossFit maybe 2 years into that. Okay. So there's 2 years post-college where it was like, I didn't even know what CrossFit was, but I was still searching, still experimenting, still trying new things, traveling, a little world travel, trying to, expose myself to different stuff, maybe escape, maybe get away. Got introduced to CrossFit, dabbled just a touch with some local boxes, or the local box basically at the time.
What year was this?
This was like 2008.
Okay.
Yeah. So, San Francisco CrossFit, which it's a really well-known, box where Kelly Starrett, sort of the owner, sort of founded Mobility Watt out of that place. It used to be in a parking lot.
Yeah. I remember that gym used to be like a parking lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Not too far from where I live, really close. And so I went there, and I caught the Kelly Starrett bug, his enthusiasm, his charisma. So I was into it. But then I was moving around, going to different schools, like different places, and started doing some .com stuff, and sort of just went down the rabbit hole trying to learning the traditional like CrossFit.com approach. There was something that was like really intriguing about it for me, and like I really want to do this. Like I got to learn this. So this is like, I got to be like Chris Spieler. I got to be like James Fitzgerald. I got to be like, Josh Everett. Like these were my like idols at the time, but I couldn't do the 3 on 1 off without like hurting myself. Like I was like, this doesn't feel right. So the journey was still continuing. And then a few years later, I kind of wound up in a coaching environment where I was getting coached and educated individually by OPEX Fitness. And that's been kind of my the last 6-7 years of my life.
Yeah. So you found it around 2008. You found CrossFit, went into it, dug into it. And then when did you start going to the games? Was it 2010?
Yeah.
What was the story there? How'd that all happen? How'd that come together?
It came together. I dropped out of medical school in 2009, moved back to Marin County, which is my home. There was kind of one CrossFit box that was really like the main one in the county. I went there, started working out, had every intention of becoming a fitness coach. So, they saw my potential and they asked me if I would join the, staff. And then shortly thereafter, they're like, hey, you want to be on our team? And I was like, sure, And this is way before I believed in myself as an athlete, as a CrossFit athlete. But I quickly found out, through team training, like, okay, I'm the best guy here for sure. And like, I jumped on an affiliate cup team, and that was the first year they had, qualifications to get to the games. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, it was just registered. I want to go, let me be on the list,
Yeah.
So 2010, we did like a regional qualifier down in Irvine, California. It was, this was known as the pre-Bach days. So, you could wear your own uniforms. You didn't have to wear Reebok at the CrossFit Games. Yeah. And so we came with our, Nike tank tops, and we were at the Home Depot Center the first year they had it there. And, it's come a long way since then, right?
Yeah, it's wild that just watching the evolution of the games. It's from what was the DVD? Every rep counts, or what is it? Something like that.
Every second counts.
Every second counts. Yeah, every second counts. Like that was, what was years that? 2008.
That was 2008.
Yeah, 2008. So watching that video until 2016 or 2017, it's wild at the transformation. Nuts. Went from the CrossFit Games being on like a farm essentially to on ESPN and at the StubHub Center. Now it's in Minnesota or something.
It is in Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah, I knew somewhere around there. It's crazy. Yeah. So what? So 2010, you went a few years though. What were the other years?
So 2010 through 2012, I was part of that same affiliate. And we put a team together year after year. So first year we were kind of just, we were just disjointed. We were just stoked to be there. I think we took 36th place. The next year we trained as a team a bit more. We got, I think that year our team changed a little bit. We got one new athlete or something like that. And I think we finished in just outside of the top 20. Mm-hmm. And then the year after that, we actually as a team got a coach that coached all 6 of us individually. And we actually all committed to training for a full year, which was weird, right? It's like everyone trains year round now. But back then we would get together. We'd have a team meeting in November. And then we'd start training together in December, January, for the first couple of years. So in the last year, we trained year round. We all had individual coaches, and we took 6th at the game. So we went from 36th to 6th. And at the time, the top 6 teams got to compete in the final event. All the other teams didn't. So we basically were we want to be in that final event. Yeah. And it was when the 6 athletes on the team had to each individually do one of the benchmarked named girl wads. Yep. So I did Diane. There was Grace, Elizabeth, Fran, Karen were the other workouts that had to get done. And that was kind of after that year, we pretty much, people wanted to go different ways. One of our team members moved. One wanted to have kids, got pregnant. So it was kind of a natural I mean, and I was hungry still for training and evolution in the sport. So it made sense for me to make a transition to being an individual athlete. And that year was 2013. I qualified for the games my first try. Following year, 2014, repeat games. And then 2016, I took 2015 off. 2016, I made another run at it and qualified and had my best finish as an individual, which was 12th place.
Awesome. Yeah. So we'll focus on 2016. So your last year you went to the games. What was your training like leading up to that to take 12th place?
Well, it was like, really, it started in 2013. That was like,
course, yeah.
When I started training as an individual, through 13, 14, 15, and 16, I needed 4 years to develop myself as an athlete to a point where I could really succeed at an event like the CrossFit Games, which is 4 days of pretty brutal, workouts and stress and anxiety and a schedule that sucks and all of the above, and against a competitive field. So, in 13 and 14, I had the abilities to take a top 10, but ultimately, like, I just couldn't put together multiple days of good anything.
Yeah.
And in 16, I finally had put together enough training over the years, volume of training, consistency of training, and aerobic development to really excel over the course of 4 days. I got better as the 4 days went on, and I finished Saturday and Sunday with 3 fourth place finishes, which makes a big difference on the leaderboard.
Oh, yeah.
So it was the training leading up to it was, specifically that summer, it was basically training 2 or 3 times a day, 7 days a week. And those training sessions were extremely varied, but, 2 days a week were completely 100% aerobic, swimming, biking, running, long, slow, steady. And then the other 5 days were, short, intense sessions that mimic kind of the lead up to a competition, which is, you got to be up for 3 to 4 WODs or events a day, and you got to be able to dig deep.
How did so you had those years where you were training for individual. What did the yearly periodization look like?
It was a little different each year, for sure. I mean, my coaches are very, we treat it like any professional sport where I am going to peak, really around regionals time. And then if the training volume and the amount of training I put in is sufficient, then I can probably ride a little bit of that out through to the games. With a little bit of a deload during the summertime before the games, maybe a week, 2 long weekends of no training just to keep me fresh. But, so that's typically around June is when you have to like peak, or end of May, early June. And the season ends, in August. And for me, because I was playing grid.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
PGL, my season ended in October. So I basically have to like deload from October, November, December, like bring it way down, lots of bodybuilding, not for time stuff, massive aerobic development, and then start building back in, complex Olympic lifts, towards January, start to touch on some, aerobic power work in January and February, just so I'm prepared to feel what it's supposed to feel like in the open. And then after the open, it would always just start to mimic regionals prep. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I would train, and those sessions would look like regionals kind of, regional level skill. So it's like, we're not doing box jumps as much as we're doing ring muscle ups and, heavy cleans and snatches and handstand walks, the things that tend to be seen more often in, a regionals format, not in the open format. And then the summertime is about, continuing to keep, absolute strength high while just getting in longer aerobic sessions and more running, because running is a huge component of the CrossFit Games. And mostly just because not enough athletes in the earlier years were putting in enough running volume. So they'd get to the CrossFit Games. The running volume is not crazy, by any stretch, right? Like if you're a runner, it's like, well, you guys ran like 4 miles total. But if you run with some intensity, or you run with a weight vest, or you run and do other, hip fatiguing movements, and then you and you haven't been putting on mileage, dude, that'll wreck you for the first day is a 7-mile trail run, which it was in 2016. And guys if they hadn't been putting in like 15 or, 8 to 15 miles a week, or 8 to 10 miles a week, let's say, just building that up over the summer, they were smoked.
Yeah.
Like they couldn't, like their ankle flexion went, like it was bad. So, you got to be prepared for that. You have to put in the training volume required to be able to handle those events, and then come back and still perform at your best, at your potential for the other events. And people mistake some of that training volume for intensity. They're like, oh man, you're going hard all day. It's like, no, I'm just constantly moving, and I go hard, maybe 6 to 8 times a week during those, builds to regionals or the games.
Yeah. What was your recovery? I mean, that's a huge component of it, that it's not only doing all the required volume and intensity to get you ready for the games, but then you got to recover from all that work as well. What did you do for recovery? Anything specific?
In my early years of training as an individual athlete, I had to do, I was doing more focused recovery, like, okay, I got to do this, got to do this mobility session, I got to do this like blood flow thing, this massage, this, that, whatever, right? Like, it was more required for me because I didn't have the training age and volume built. So things would just fuck me up more.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing that's helped my recovery has just been my massive aerobic development over the years. So like, just the ability to, like, people just think like CrossFit's high intensity. It's like, that's bullshit. Like, you're a competitor in the sport. You have to be an aerobic monster who's strong as shit and can do gymnastics well.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you have those things, you can be really successful in this sport. So what the beauty of being really aerobic is that it dampens you a little bit in your output, and you recover faster because you're not actually putting out like 100% effort on anything. Plus the aerobic volume that we do we were doing in my training, biking, rowing, running, swimming, like all that is recovery work in a sense.
Yeah.
Right? It's not taxing on the brain. It's not taxing on the body. It's just like moving blood through the body, which carries nutrients, which helps oxygenate tissues, which, you get more breathing, more blood flow, like that's recovery. And then I have just like impeccable, like attunement to nutrition and what my body needs. So I was just really good about feeding myself correctly for years, and being consistent with it, and then getting to bed at like 8:30 or 9 every night. And that was it for me.
How many hours did you sleep usually per night?
During that phase of my life, it was like in bed by 8:30, wake up at 5:30 or 6. So, however many hours that.
Yeah, around 10 hours, 9.5, 10 hours. Yeah. So you talked about nutrition. What was your nutrition like?
Super. I mean, relative to other times in my life, just really high carb. Lots of carbohydrates for recovery. Like starches. I'm gluten free, and at that time I was mostly dairy free, minus whey protein that I would have. So lots of sugars and lots of starches around training. Animal protein, 4 to 5 times a day, and moderate amount of fat, which probably at the time was like 125, 150 grams a day.
What were your carb sources?
Mainly white rice, oatmeal, potatoes, and that'd be it.
Yeah.
You know, like, super simple, right? I just, when I was training a lot for games, like I didn't vary things as much. I kept it pretty consistent around like, you know, the sources, and just simplicity made it easier to stay on, you know, on the schedule, and make sure that I was eating enough. But for like health and longevity and kind of how I eat now, it's like a lot more variety in my eating and my, you know, my meal selection, you know, mixing in lots of different, you know, types of potatoes, squashes, for starch sources, things like that. But yeah, carb sources, tons of white rice, tons of potatoes, oatmeal every day. That's it.
Cool. So what are your goals now? What are you working towards? You didn't go to the games last year. Is that something you're still kind of working towards? Or I know you're big on the functional, you know, quote, functional bodybuilding. So we can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, my fitness goals right now are, to continue to just, I mean, I got into it at the beginning, man. I just, training because I love to train. I love to push myself. I love the feeling it gives me when it's balanced, you know, and it's not like, because training for CrossFit as a sport was not balanced by any means. And, you know, there would be like months of like kind of, just this like euphoria where I was just like, I'm so fit. I feel amazing. I'm building to something, you know, there's just like hormonal peak that I'd hit, you know, right around the games. And it was just, always followed by a major crash and just feeling like pretty much shit for months. Yeah. Which I don't really want right now. You know, I want to push myself. I want to train hard, but I want to stay connected to my business development, to my family, to my friends. And it's just not the biggest priority in my life at this point to see like, how far up the CrossFit Games, you know, leaderboard can I get? Yeah. You know, at this moment, it's not. So, you know, I'm 33 years old, and CrossFit Masters starts at 35 now. So I have, you know, definitely visions of me being back on the competition floor at 35, and perhaps I'll have another year to, you know, next year or something like that, to try my hand at the open individual, you know, division. But really it's just like in the gym every day. It's, you know, just developing a deeper appreciation, understanding of fitness principles that I coach people with, you know, connecting with the people that work here and train here with us, and then just moving because I love to move.
Yeah, no, I love that. So what, we talked about it a little bit in the beginning, what your training looks like now, but what's the bodybuilding component?
Well, it's not like, you know, it's certainly not, it's not new methodology by any means. You know, it's really taking just, you know, this notion of like what I see as some of the best aspects of functional fitness, which are, you know, choosing movements that are, help people develop their bodies in a way that, you know, translates somewhat to life, you know, helps them maintain range of motion, helps them to actually, you know, get applicably stronger in, you know, their day to day. They tend to be slightly more interesting and, you know, fun movements to do. They challenge the brain a bit more. They, coordinate, you know, various fitness traits from, you know, power, flexibility, agility, mobility, flexibility, et cetera. So it's taking movements like that and then just applying some, you know, strength conditioning principles, bodybuilding principles around time under tension and, you know, lifting with control, you know, lifting with the purpose of getting better movement mechanics or, you know, using time under tension as a tool to develop people's strength or increase their metabolic activity with a weight training session, you know, using loaded implements that, you know, challenge people a little bit more with their balance and with their stability than maybe a barbell does. So more kettlebell work, more dumbbell work, and, really just like stretching kind of the exercise selection that I bring to the gym. So it's not, as much as the movements vary within, CrossFit sport, we see a lot of the same movements over and over again. So, and there's certain movements that just don't lend themselves well to a fitness competition, like a single arm dumbbell deadlift. It's like single arm dumbbell, single leg, like RDL. Like, how are you gonna? That should never show up in a fitness competition. But it's a great training tool, and I just using a lot more of those in the training program now.
Yeah, kind of blending. Because really, if you think about it, at the heart of it, a lot of people want to be able to move better and perform better, but still look good too. I mean, that's at the end of the day, everyone wants to, regardless if they say it or not, everyone wants to look good. Everyone wants to at least train a little bit for the aesthetics.
Fuck yeah, they do. I've never heard someone come in the gym and be like, I want to look like shit.
Yeah.
I want to look like shit, but I just really want to be strong. It's like, I'm sure there's somebody out there that really doesn't care what they look like, but they're very few and far between. And I know that's, I'm the same way. It's like, our physical appearance is an expression of how we feel, inside. And when people, feel good, when they're moving well, when they're active, when they have good balance, they tend to look the way they want to look. And as well as I do that you can look great and feel terrible inside.
Yep.
So, we definitely preach the, hashtag look good, move well on functional.bodybuilding. It's really what we're about. We feel like, we're not going to try and look really good and sacrifice how we feel and how we move, right? We're not going to try and move really well and sacrifice how we look. We're going to try and blend those concepts through, like I said, like the best aspects of functional training or functional fitness and, bodybuilding, which, truly as a sport is using weight training to develop an aesthetic that is, attractive and better than the next aesthetic, standing next to you on stage. Right. So, that sport's been around for decades and decades, and they've been doing it well. Muscular development, maintaining low body fat percentages. And I would imagine, and that's part of the group that I talked about. That's like people look really good and they feel terrible. It's stage ready means, you look fantastic, but you probably are ready to pass out, just not feeling your best self. So how do we find that kind of middle ground that feels great, looks great?
I love it. Marcus, this has been a fun conversation, dude. We'll have to do it again down the line here.
Absolutely, Kyle. I appreciate you putting this together, and it's great to kind of connect on some different topics, kind of walk down the memory lane a little bit around my CrossFit competitive years, for sure. Yeah,
for sure. How can people find more information about you?
So my business is Revival Strength Coaching, and our website, revival-strength.com, is a great place for people to go and read about our services that we offer. And then my main source is through social media. So on Instagram, Marcus Philly. And then I have a sister page called functional.bodybuilding where we post movement demonstrations regularly. And there's a ton of good free content for people to go get some ideas on how they can, apply some bodybuilding principles to some functional movements and try some new things to help them feel look good and move well. I will. I'll put all the links in the show notes, dude. You're always killing it on Instagram. Definitely a good follow on there. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Awesome, dude. This was great. This was fun.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Absolute Strength Podcast. I know I had a ton of fun producing it for you. And before you go, if you could just drop me some feedback, I'd love it. I love reading your feedback. So you can go over to iTunes, leave a 5-star rating, write a little review, what you think of the podcast. I absolutely love it. I read every single one. But it's cool if you don't want to do that. I get it. No one wants to really go out of their way to do anything, let alone write a review. But I want to get your feedback. So drop me a line on Instagram at Hunt Fitness, or on Facebook, Kyle Hunt, or on Twitter, or send a pigeon or something. I don't know. I just want to hear your feedback. So if you want to give me some feedback, let me know what you think. Hit me up on Instagram at Hunt Fitness. And before you go, I have one last thing I want to say. I have a program I want you to check out. It's actually called the Absolute Strength Program, and the link is in the show notes. It's a program I designed to help increase my own squat, bench, and deadlift. And I got pretty strong off of it, and I think you're going to like it. It's a great book. Thousands of people have got amazing results from it. It's in the show notes. All right, guys. Until next time, until next episode, peace.